I don't know if Biden is going to be able to make it. I don't know if he's going to be able to make it, one, because there's this, right? And by the way, God help us, because if the GOP is successful, you do know what that means, right? Ta-da! Kamala! Oh, no. I mean, that would be really bad. Careful what you wish for, guys, okay? Careful what you wish for. But I think he's in tough shape, something that clearly the former president of the United States definitely believes and has talked about at some length on various programs, including on Fox News last night with Sean Hannity. Let's go to this clip because he thinks Biden is just so weak, he's not going to make it. He's not going to make it to 2024. Listen in.
Of Joe Biden. And of course, he is struggling cognitively. I can't think of, in the last couple of months, any appearance that he has had where he wasn't either mumbling or bumbling or stumbling or having no clue where to go, where to exit. Now, my question is, do you think in 11 months he will be their candidate?
I personally don't think he makes it. Okay, I haven't said that. I'm saving it for this big town hall. I personally don't think he makes it. I think he's in bad shape physically. Do you remember when he said, I'd like to take him behind the barn? If he took me behind the barn and I went like this, I believe he'd fall over. I believe he'd fall over.
I do believe he also got into the beach thing again, too, you know, because he doesn't like the look of the president always on the beach. Anyway, it was kind of a funny moment. Everybody's talking about something else, however, that happened. And we will also talk about that. But before we do, think about this. Okay, so Donald Trump makes the comments about Biden and how sort of weak he is. And you know, it's a sentiment that is definitely echoed by the entire voting population, right? You talk to anyone, and I think on both sides of the aisle, the biggest concern is, can he make it? Can he actually do this job? Because, you know, he's up there. He's up there in age, and you can be in your 80s and you can be in your 80s. And this guy has never necessarily had, like, the best in terms of cognitive functioning ability. He's always been, dare I say, kind of a little dumb, right? I mean, like, I've been listening to the guy since I was a little kid. He used to campaign in New Hampshire. Heard him when I was about 10 years old and he was running for president. He's been at this a long time, right? He wasn't great back then. He's not great now, period. But there is some worry that he is declining and declining fast. And yet they're going to have him run. They're going to have him run. Why? For one reason only, because he's the only one that can beat Trump, he thinks. I mean, this is your only reason for running. Not that you care about America, not that you want to help people, not that you want to fix the economy, fix the world. No. You just want to beat Trump? I mean, how pathetic is that? You got to see this, guys. You really got to see this, because he was out there. He was asked by a reporter. He had actually been saying this in some private events, we're told, some fundraisers. And so finally a reporter said, you know, what if Donald Trump wasn't in the race? Would that change your mind? Let's cut to this clip. It's an impromptu moment with the president.
Would you be running for president if Trump wasn't running?
I expect so, but look, he is running, and I have to run.
If you drop out, if Trump runs out?
No, not now.
Wow. So he's running because Trump is running. Think about that. Think about what that says, or perhaps what it doesn't say. It's not because he wants to help Americans achieve better success. It's not because he wants to help the middle class that's feeling the squeeze. No, you know what? You look at the numbers. I'll tell you this. With Bidenomics, the middle class is getting killed thanks to inflation and a lousy economy. It's like 1970 something all over again. Welcome back, Carter. A play on Welcome Back, Carter. And by the way, Norman Lear, who was the creator of Archie Bunker, remember that show? He just passed away. I think he was 101. So he passed Kissinger in age. Anyway, thinking of Welcome Back, Carter, a television show just reminded me of that. But I think bottom line here is that's not a reason to run. You don't want to run just because Trump is running. And by the way, I still don't think you're the best that the Democrats could offer. Or maybe you are. I mean, isn't that saying something pretty scary? Well, so the Democrats are now realizing, guess what? We can't beat this guy. Look at the polls. Poll after poll after poll after poll shows Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in like every category. So what are they doing? They're doubling down on fear. Fear works. Fear sells. In the news business, you know the saying, if it bleeds, it leads. And so they're pushing this narrative. Trump is bad. Trump's going to ruin America. This, that, and the other. I mean, it's getting kind of hard to believe them only because every single time they push a narrative, it turns out they're totally wrong. Totally, utterly wrong. I mean, think about the Hunter Biden laptop. That was just Russian disinformation. There was no FBI investigation going on into Hunter Biden. Except there was, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, time after time after time. They've been proven. Just look at, we don't have to get into the whole thing, but March 2020 and the virus that came out of that. And people tried to say, well, hey, like there's this lab in China, in Wuhan, China. And deep state's like, no. I mean, you really couldn't go there. This was like no-go zone, right? Only to finally see a number of three-letter agencies, all except for the CIA, I guess they have a split there still, come out and say, yeah, you know what? This most likely came out of Wuhan, China. CIA hasn't totally okayed that, though, yet. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, but I think Americans are scratching their heads and saying, but wait a second, I think the source of the misinformation, thank you very much, happens to be you guys. And so they're okay with that. No, they're going to double down on that. They're tripling down on that. The Atlantic came out with a whole issue on that. If Trump were to win, God help us all. God help us all. Because you know what? America's over. That's the end of it. We will never be the same. I read you some excerpts from the Atlantic yesterday, but let's go now to David Frum, who's one of the authors of one of the stories, one of the many. There are 20 some odd stories on how America would just be over if Donald Trump were to win. Here he is on Morning Joe pushing that narrative, and they just ate it up.
Let's think about that moment on noon of Inauguration Day 2025, and suppose Donald Trump is the person taking the oath. At that point, Donald Trump will be at the center of 4 criminal indictments, 2 federal and 2 state. He may already be on trial. He may already have been convicted. There's nothing that stops a convicted person from being elected president. At the same time, in the state of New York, he's going to have a civil trial to dissolve all his companies for their crimes. So what does he do when he finishes his inaugural address and goes back to the White House at 12:05 or 12:10, skips the parade, he's bored? His very first priority is going to be to bust up the legal system of the United States, because if he doesn't, he probably goes to prison. So that's priority one.
I love how this guy is like a, quote, journalist, right? But he's got all this leading stuff. Oh, what does he do? It's 12:01. It's unbelievable the way they carry on, and they try and paint this picture. Kind of reminds me of Nancy Pelosi bringing her daughter in, the documentary producer, right, with the J6 tapes, and that's all we saw. All we saw. Anyway, so David Frum goes on and on and on and basically says this is a dictator in the making, that he's going to go after all his enemies. And there's this thought process out there from all of them, right? They're repeating it. It's like they got their talking points, and you just keep drilling this in, that he's going to imprison people, he's going to go after his enemies, he's going to use the legal system to go after people. Well, Trump's looking at him, he's like, well, wait a second, didn't they do that to me? This is exactly what I said to you, actually, before he said this on Hannity last night. I said this to you just yesterday. Isn't that exactly what they did to him? You got Letitia James out there in New York who campaigned on going after Trump, now trying to come up with some concocted legal nonsense in which somehow she is saying that the state has to value his property as opposed to, well, he and the bank that was lending him money. I mean, this one, and I'm a business reporter by background, so that one just really kind of gets me, and it's frightening because this is exactly the kind of stuff they do in communist countries. What do you think Hugo Chavez did in Venezuela with all his political enemies? Oh, he just went and used the courts to his advantage so that he could take property from the people that he didn't want or just exile them from Venezuela or various places. I mean, this is quite reminiscent of that in many different ways. So that's frightening. They say he's a dictator, yet they've been the ones going after him. They're the ones that are locking people up because, gosh, you thought something was funny and you shared a meme on Twitter. Remember that? We talked about Doug McKay, who's locked up. I mean, he just got out on bail, but he's still going to go to trial. They wouldn't even let him out on bail. 8 days after Joe Biden came into office, they showed up on his doorstep, and he's been in jail ever since. So how is it that Trump's the dictator? Well, he had some fun with that. He had a little bit of fun. Said he'd do it for a day. Maybe that's a play on what the Atlantic was saying. The only thing is he actually wants to get stuff done. Here, watch this clip. It's kind of funny. This is Donald Trump, again, on with Hannity last night. They did this town hall. It was a chance for him to talk. It was a conversation. Here we go, Donald Trump on whether or not he would be a dictator.
We almost have to go to a break. I want to go back to this one issue, though, because the media has been focused on this and attacking you.
Yeah.
Under no circumstances. You are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
for?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border, and I want to drill.
That's
drill,
not. That's
drill.
That's not.
No, no.
That's not retribution.
I'm going to be. You know, he keeps. We love this guy. He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, no, no. Other than day one, we're closing the border." And we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
So that sounds to me like you're going back to the policies when you were president. All right.
Handy's trying to help him out there. He's like, oh, man, you know they're going to run with this. And, of course, they did, right? They're like, oh, he is going to be a dictator, whatever. Look, you got to just sometimes look at actions and what Trump has done, didn't do. Yes, bad tweets. Yes, said things that he shouldn't. Yes, invited controversy at times when, he just didn't need to. However, when you look at the policies and then they try and tell you that he's going to lock you up, and you look at what Joe Biden and company have been doing to constantly control the narrative, it's very different. You see, they do it behind closed doors. Trump's out in the open. He's like, yeah, you, CNN, I don't like you. Whereas what you actually see the Biden administration doing is going around, right? Like Joe Biden's never the one to be out there doing that. They got people for that, all kinds of people for that. And then when you try and ask them about it, they go silent. Karine Jean-Pierre just closed down a press conference the other day when the reporter dared to ask her about the direct deposit that was going into Pop's account from Hunter's LLCs. I mean, really bad stuff, guys. Really, really bad stuff. Accounting 101. Something wasn't right.